Hi, I'm Brad. Remember that ImagineOptix company? I reported on them a lot last year. Basically, Valve invested a lot of money in them to build a factory for some next generation lenses that are really good at polarization gratings, can do a bunch of different things. The most recent update I had about it was all the way like in November or something when I reported, with the help of Carl Guttag, that Meta actually bought the company. Now, the assumption was that Valve sued ImagineOptix because maybe Meta was interested in purchasing the company back in early 2020 when the lawsuit first started. But I got something a little bit different in the form of a message today, and I really want to discuss it real quick. It's possible that Valve sued ImagineOptix, nothing to do with what another company was doing, but maybe ImagineOptix wasn't up to par. Let me explain. Shortly after I reported about ImagineOptix being bought by Meta, I was contacted by someone who I cannot name, and they're not even in the XR industry. They were in a different industry that was planning to use ImagineOptix polarization gratings for a product they are working on in R&D. Basically, after Meta bought the company, they had no communication whatsoever with ImagineOptix anymore, and they were worried that there was just something wrong. And then, obviously, us reporting that Meta bought it, it all made sense to them now. Well, fast forward a few months till today, and basically, I got some new updates from that person that was working in that company. Basically, they were asking me if there was any other companies I knew that was also doing polarization gratings because they actually are having some troubles finding a replacement. That's not the interesting part of what they had to say, though. The most interesting part was that they believe that Meta is actually going to have a hard time working with ImagineOptix because they might actually be quite far from being as mature as they say they are to be. They basically received a shipment of polarization gratings for their R&D product a couple weeks before Meta actually purchased ImagineOptix, and they finally got those into testing more recently and found out ImagineOptix basically lied about the quality of their manufacturing or their product that they were giving to this other company. So basically, ImagineOptix at this time with this third-party company basically said, "Yeah, we can do great things. We are very mature in our technology, our manufacturing process." But from this person and their experience with the actual product they got delivered, that is a bunch of bullcrap. It's to the point where they were even looking into actually do a lawsuit for the scope of work to pretty much say that, yeah, they lied, even though they signed contracts with us and everything. But they kind of probably won't pursue it that far because now that Meta owns the company, this is a much smaller company, and suing ImagineOptix, which is owned by Meta, you get into the whole Meta lawyership and everything, and ugh. So knowing this information, we have to look back at Valve, who sued ImagineOptix in early 2020. And again, the history behind it was Valve funded ImagineOptix in 2017, about $10 million altogether, with the purpose of ImagineOptix building a factory, because I'm guessing ImagineOptix was very confident that, yeah, if we had the manufacturing lines for mass producing at scale and high volumes, you could use this for your next product. Well, I'm guessing after the factory was built and we got some samples from these pre-built factory, Valve was probably not happy with the quality of the lenses that they were promised would probably be much better than they already are. And that's when things got crazy and lawyers started coming out. Valve sued ImagineOptix, and eventually it was settled out of court, at least publicly from what I've seen. But after ImagineOptix and Valve settled, basically Valve published a huge amount of different patents related to a lot of ImagineOptix polarization grading technology. So the assumption is that after the lawsuit, they had an out-of-court settlement to decide, okay, Valve, we keep your money and your investments. You don't sue us, and you get to have rights to all the actual patents and the sort of designs for the technology that you could use at a future time with maybe a manufacturer that could actually manufacture this at high quality at scale. So yeah, basically Valve got scammed, kind of. It's complicated because I do believe that ImagineOptix probably did have some very good engineers designing these polarization gratings, and maybe at smaller volumes and like actually prototypes were good, which was enough to get Valve to invest. But when they were trying to do the things at scale is when problems started to actually appear, and yeah. It was no doubt though that ImagineOptix was struggling around the time that Valve actually sued them, and after the lawsuit, ImagineOptix basically did a huge kind of video trying to find some new suitors to actually purchase the company. Like, hey, we are for sale, and Meta jumped on the opportunity and actually bought ImagineOptix. So not sure what they're going to do with ImagineOptix. Maybe they, with their Facebook money, they can actually solve all the problems. Where Valve is not really hands-on with that kind of thing. They probably wouldn't want to spend even more money. So ImagineOptix and all the factories they built could actually get up to the quality that they need for mass volumes. So yeah, this whole ImagineOptix story has been a roller coaster of really news and emotion since I've started reporting on it, and it's just like weird industry drama that gets more interesting the more I hear about it. So yeah, this might not be the end of the ImagineOptix story. I'm sure we might hear more in the future, but for now, that's pretty much the latest update I have. Anyway, please like, subscribe, and bradsmells.com/Patreon if you want to support more of this while my dog sniffs me.